Hi there, so I'm Hillary, and you may have watched my previous video about 10 years of living in Finland. So I wanted to already make a follow-up video just because I've had a couple of ideas come through my mind since I made the last video. And of course, I always do want to talk about the journey of living in another country. And if you've lived in another country, then you know a lot about what I'm about to bring up. Or you might be in the middle of it right this moment. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about culture shock and also give my own perspective on it, just because it's something that affects every person very differently. And so it's quite a sensitive topic, maybe for many, depending on what type of personal relationship you have with culture shock. So I'll share a little bit about my own first, just because it was my own experience from my own perspective. So I moved, as you know, to Finland 10 years ago. And when I first came here, I had a little bit of an idea of how it would be. I had read up a lot about the culture here in Finland, sauna, metal music, what have you, and a little bit about how to be polite in Finland. And then, of course, I studied the entire language too. So I really wanted to put a perspective on what it feels like when you first move. So when you first move to a new country, everything's so exciting. Everything is wonderful. Everything is so different and new and exciting, okay? Everything is amazing. Your mind is just on full blast. Happy, 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 happy chemicals all through your brain. And so it does, at a certain point, come to a very big halt when you realize you have to learn the language, you have to get a job, you have to do all these different things, and things that are normally so easy to do just feel like so much. Like, I'll never forget when I had to open a bank account, for example. I had to have a Finland issued just like personal ID card, which I had not had. I was trying to use my passport and I didn't know anything like about what I was doing whatsoever. So I had to go and open this, and it seemed like such a big deal because I had to take the bus downtown and do this and that. I couldn't drive here yet, anything. So everything just felt like such a chore. And then also applying for the residence permit to even live. So how it works here is, at least if I'm remembering correctly, you live a couple of years on this type A permit, depending on if you're here for family ties or whatever. And then you have to decide if you want to become a citizen or have permanent residency. And then you can, of course, change that later if you would like to. But everything felt like a big chore to do. And I was really starting to run out a lot of my money that I saved, just because I had been paying out expenses and not doing anything as far as making money because I couldn't find work. I just had to wait for the residence permit, and then I had to think about learning the language because I went on a couple of interviews just all in English, and everyone was just like, we would love to hire you, but you need to speak Finnish. And that was the start of my, oh my God, I need to figure my shit out right away, or else I'm really screwed. So what I decided to do was apply for, at that time, I don't know if it still exists, but I applied for the language services from the unemployment office, which I did go through about a year and a half or something like that. And then I decided after that I wanted to apply to university here because I have a bachelor's degree in psychology in America, but it doesn't really equate to anything here, unfortunately. It's just an extra degree because in order for it to mean something, I would have had to have a master's in psychology, for example. So I wanted the same level of education, even if it was going to be a pain. So I decided to apply to nursing school, knowing that, that's a pretty good way to find a job in another country for a foreigner, isn't it? Well, yeah, it really was a good idea at the time. And I'm really glad that I did it. And it really taught me a lot. And it was very hard at some points just because in certain placements, you're just treated a little bit differently if your Finnish is not perfect. So I did go through some struggles with that. So going back to the not understanding the language thing. So it's really awkward in social situations in the beginning when you haven't learned any of the language yet there's people around you talking everywhere you go in a language that you can't understand. What are they saying? What are they thinking? Are they talking shit about me? You don't know. And maybe it's better you don't know sometimes. But yeah, it really made me feel like I was living my life in a bubble. And so that's why I personally chose to learn Finnish, as well as knowing that I wanted to find a job and a source of income so I could just, live normally in a society that contributes to taxes and all that good stuff that comes along with it. And so, yeah, it really helped me break free of my bubble. Even when I was in the very early stages of learning Finnish, just knowing that little bit, step by step, I started understanding more and being able to read really well. Reading was my first really strong area. And they develop all at different times. And then understanding speaking develops sometimes a little bit slower than reading. And then speaking, that's usually pretty okay. I mean, I speak Finnish, but sometimes, surely, I make grammatical mistakes, and then I try to correct myself. Or right now, what I've done is I've hired a Finnish language teacher that helps me every week with my Finnish because I decided that it's something I always would like to improve on. And I recommend that to anybody going to another country. Enough about me and more about you. So, what was your experience with moving to another country if you've done that before? Did you feel any culture shock? What did you feel? I'm really curious what your answer will be. But also, one thing that really affected me was having a lot of anxiety in many different situations. And it really, really became a problem for me, this anxiety. It was making me physically sick, and it's a miracle I got through my nursing school. It really is. It's amazing I was able to show up every day and do what I was doing because I was so anxious sometimes, and I felt a lot of pressure constantly. And when you feel a lot of pressure constantly, it can manifest in all sorts of physical symptoms. So I'd like to talk a little bit about mental and physical aspects of culture shock. So like I talked about, you can go through anxiety, have depression for like copious amounts of reasons. One being, a lot of times people miss after a while things about their home country that they no longer have, or they start missing their family, or start reminiscing about where they were originally from and thinking of the good times there, and that's completely normal. One thing that I miss the most out of anything is I would have to say my family. More than living in the country, I just miss certain places because my family lives there. If I had no family living there, I would not miss those places. So that's all there is to it, because I'm at the point, at least now, where I'm comfortable with where I'm at. I'm good at reaching out to my family on an as needed basis. I call my family all the time, meaning my mom. I send messages to my dad, to my aunts. I spam people with memes, anything that makes you feel good. And it's really important to do that and keep that connection. And one thing I've noticed is over time, I've built maybe stronger connections with certain family members that I didn't have before. And that's been really amazing, and especially at a distance. And I think it helps having something new and fun to talk about and sharing different experiences that maybe someone has never experienced before. And everybody's curious what it's like. And so, aside from anxiety and depression, one thing I would really like to say is if you struggle at any time with anxiety or depression, no matter where you are, including your home country, please get help. And please talk to somebody about your issues. And especially if it becomes really, really like a big thing in your life that feels like it's just kind of like dampening you down and you're not able to do day-to-day things, please seek help. So I cannot stress that enough. And if it means going on medication to deal with it, go on medication. And if all you need is talk therapy, do talk therapy. And another thing that's important is making strong connections in the country in which you are living. So you have people to talk to, other foreigners maybe that can relate to your situation. So if you're having a bad day, you have a support system. Or another really good thing is finding people that are native to the country that you get along with and have things in common with and you can share things with, because things start to feel a little more like home when you speak to people that are living where you live and maybe know more about the country than you, so you can learn from them. And it is so important. And another thing that helps you in self-actualization sometimes is actually being able to work in the country that you desire. I know for me, a work identity was one thing that I felt like I was really, really missing when I first moved here. I felt like there were so many times that I just missed working. I missed contributing to the household in a proper way. And it felt kind of embarrassing to be in my late 20s, early 30s, feeling like I was starting all over again from infancy to adulthood. Well, luckily for me, I reached it to adulthood, okay? And so, yeah. And even then, that doesn't mean your job is always safe, even in another country. So you have to be really careful what you commit to. Look at work agreements very closely, is all I have to say. It's very important. And yes, that will make your world feel a little bit better and more cozy with the connections you make with other people. It's important to put yourself out there. And if you're like me, I'm an ambivert. I don't always like going in public and socializing with people. I feel more fueled by being with myself. But like one thing that does fuel me, however, is my job is very social and I really like interacting with people in that setting. I think it's nice to do teamwork because you're always learning. You're learning about other people, which can be interesting. Learning about the place that you're living, which is also really interesting. I recently moved, so the whole work, what do I want to say? The whole work kind of environment is different. And I actually like it more. It's more cozy now, to be honest with you. I like it more than what I've had before. And so really making those connections with your coworkers is important too. And be sure to socialize and really put yourself out there and be open. Don't close yourself off too much. But that doesn't mean you have to go and get coffee with your workmate the next day if they don't want to. I really don't recommend that. So it's important to get to know people around you. And another thing that I would really like to say is, again, learn the language, and learn the freaking language, because it's gonna help you a lot. It's gonna help you break free of just everything in English, because that really becomes limiting in the country that you're living in. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today, was this subject that has been something that I've gone through, and now I feel like I'm at a point where I've come out on the other side of it. It doesn't mean that there isn't any problems, but what it means is there's less problems, and these problems just slowly drift away. And the main thing is calling your family often and visiting when you can. I highly recommend. And it just gets expensive sometimes to make the visits, but it's really worth it in the end. And one thing that's been really difficult is the last time I visited 2 years ago, seeing your family members age really gives you a new perspective on life itself and how important it is, those connections that you keep with people that love and care about you. So I can't stress enough keeping those connections. You might move away thinking, oh, I want a new life. I don't want to have anything to do with my family. And that's fine considering your situation. Sometimes there are situations that are actually pretty volatile that people are getting away from. And I applaud you on that if that is your situation. And it's a safer place for you now to exist. And I'm very proud of you if that's something you have personally done. So I just wanted to put that subject out there. And I'm really curious about your experiences with it. If you have anything to add to it, I'm super curious. So I would like to just publish this, hoping that there's other people that have felt the same things. Anyways, I'll make another video soon on another subject. Any subject suggestions are welcomed. Anyways, thank you. Bye. Another thing I wanted to mention that really helps you cope is finding some hobbies that really interest you. So for me, I've always loved music. I love singing no matter what. And just now I'm living in a place where I can sing freely. So hopefully I get that up to speed at some point. And then also I really like to draw. I like making things. I like being creative. And just recently I've started finding a kind of liking for making videos. And also I have attempted to stream on Twitch, which I would like to experiment more with in the future. And then I also have some really random hobbies too that you would never even think that I was doing. Okay, so when I went back to the United States, I went through my mom's things that were my own just to see what was there. And one thing that I found was a Tamagotchi 2 years ago, okay? 2 years ago. And so I brought it home with me. I started it up and I was like, wow, these buttons aren't that great. So I Googled online about Tamagotchis, and lo and behold, I found out that they still make them. Now there's color versions, now there's all sorts of versions. And so I started collecting them. Yep, I started collecting Tamagotchis, okay? And I actually have a re-release of an original right here. Yes, that is freaking right. And so it's things that make me happy and cozy in my free time that are like kind of random. Of course, like going outside and walking and stuff every now and then, but like you gotta find things that help you feel cozy. And one of those things is like, for example, on the side of my room, you can see maybe some of the remnants of my closet. So just like, I've really tried to make a cozy space for myself so I feel nice. And then another thing that I've really liked doing is playing online games every now and then, which I really need to log in soon to a game and play because it's been a while. And yeah, so even silly things like that you would never imagine are really helpful in making you feel more like in your space and in your own little bubble. Because at least for me, I live sometimes in my own little bubble, and that includes my hamster, my Tamagotchi collection, my games, my online community that I like interacting with, and yeah. So it can get that's what I was saying last time, just over here being a dork. So that's what I'm doing, in case you were wondering. So yeah, those are some other really kind of off-the-wall things to make you feel more at home too. Find your niche. Find something that makes you feel like so cozy and warm. That is all I can recommend to you. Or if you're one of the people that likes going outside and doing really exciting things and stuff like that, do that too. At least for me, nature is really also important in healing. and especially during summertime. Summer is absolutely beautiful here in Finland, okay? And it's coming soon. Spring is coming soon. I hope.